of two ways. Go with what you know. What do we do yesterday? Ignore that negative for a second. Nevaeh and I and Brianna, they're looking at that first one right there. Uh, Chloe and Eva and I were talking up here about that negative. Just ignore it for a second. If you ignore that negative and do what we kind of talked about with yesterday, multiplying those binomials, okay? Just ignore the negative. What I saw there was what? 10y squared. What is it? Negative 15y, 12y, and then what? Negative 18. Combine like terms, and then you've got this trinomial. But then that negative is still sitting out front. We haven't done anything with that negative. So what we now need to do then is keep in mind that there's a negative that's going to distribute. And what's that negative do to whatever that answer was? That negative is going to flip the signs on that resulting trinomial. So now take that negative, don't forget about it, take that negative and multiply it through, distribute it on through there. And again, what's that negative going to do? All that's going to do is flip the signs. So if I have an extra number out front, for myself, what I tend to do is go with the easy stuff. Go with what we just talked about yesterday. You guys were doing well with that yesterday. Multiplying those binomials, you did fine with that. Get that resulting answer, and if there's something out front, then multiply it through at the very end. This is just a quick distribution through. And what's my resulting answer? Negative 10y squared plus 3y and what? Plus 18. Right. So go with what you're familiar with. All right. Don't do something maybe unfamiliar until we have to. Now after that, what do we have? A quadratic trinomial, and knowing that vocabulary. What's the coefficient of the cubic term? Cubic term is x to the what? 3. Do we have one of those? So you can tell me one of two things. You can say 0, or you can say what? None. Either one of those is appropriate. Don't leave it blank. Blank, I don't know what that really means. Do you mean it's 0 or none, or does it mean you don't know what it means? So tell me 0 or none. Okay, just don't leave it blank. What's the coefficient of the quadratic term? Negative 10. That's right. What's the coefficient of the linear term? It is, yes, 3. Not coefficient, but the constant term is negative 18. Remember, it's technically x to the 0, which is just 18 here. And what is my lead coefficient then? Negative 10. It's the trinomial. It's the final trinomial. It's my line leader. That negative 10. And as I said, we'll get to graphing later on. That graphing, that lead coefficient is going to tell us a lot about the shape of the graph. Okay, number 2. Number 2 goes right above what we finished off with yesterday. If you look above what we did on yesterday, what do we say the biggest thing was to do? Take that squared and do what with it? Silence is killing me. Take that squared and what?
Multiply the number by itself.
Multiply it by itself, expand it out, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing, again, we want to do. And then after that, once you realize that, most of you, again, were fine. A couple of you try to shortcut it and say like 9x plus 64. But then you forgot that middle term. Some of you did expand it out, and then you were fine. But you see that quantity squared, expand it, and then go right back to what we've been doing yesterday. You got to get great at this. Not good at it, got to get great at it. And then after you do that, distribute that through. 3x distribute through. Negative 8 distribute on through. Okay? 9x squared, you should have. Negative, what, 48, I believe? And a plus 64. Check to see if you get that answer. You distribute through, combine like terms. For the most part, I can do those pretty much in my head at this point, especially if we get to next week. You should do the simple arithmetic. Finish it off, name it quadratic trinomial again. Coefficient of the cubic term, don't have one, do we? There is no x to the third, so tell me 0 or none. Coefficient of the quadratic term is 9. Coefficient of the linear term is negative 48. And the constant is what? 64. And the lead coefficient is what? 9. That's my line leader. That's just a quick wrap up of everything we've talked about the last 2 days. Okay. So if you've been here, great. Just again, kind of touching base and throwing that negative out there. And if you weren't here, again, that's a little bit of what we talked about. Again, the videos are on there too. Now, number 3A is a bit messy. So let's go with number 3A. Don't change up anything though. What's the first thing that you're going to do on 3A? Or 2A, whatever it is. 3A. Expand it out, guys. Expand it out, distribute. Nothing's changing. You see that quantity squared. Go expand it out and then distribute it. Don't change up anything that you've done. Just like we did on that last one a second ago. Go expand it out, distribute it, check with your partner. What are you guys getting? Okay. If you haven't done it yet, go do number 3 there. Okay, right there. 3A, just 3A, guys. 3A. Okay? I'll be right there, Brianna. I'm not ignoring you.
Yep, that's what I thought. As if it's alright.
With this one here, now as I was peeking over shoulders, this one here, you saw you have an X, Y in your solution. Okay? Now the way that this one's answered out usually is a little bit odd. I would say odd. But I saw 2 different ways as you wrote the answer. It's about 50-50. It's not wrong, okay? But generally speaking, the way that you're going to see this answer written out, let's talk about it. And more than likely, when you see this, it's written as a multiple choice on the SAT. So if you don't see it written your way, no big deal. Just take a look at your options because it's going to be written the other way. And I'll show you most of the time the way that we write it. What did you say? 16x squared. And as we were just saying there, yeah, x times y is just a xy, right? And another 20xy. And right back there at the end, what is that going to give you? 25y squared, right? Okay. Combine like terms, put it into, all right, here's the thing. Standard form is great, but it gets a little funky sometimes when you get 2 variables. So here's how we're going to write this out. 16x squared, usually, this is how we start off alphabetically.
Oh, yeah.
What we usually tend to do here is, and I have always had a hard time trying to phrase it out. It's kind of like on this roller coaster ride, starting off the alphabetically with the largest degree on down, the x squared, x, and then we get this xy, right? And then we pick it back up, and then we increase with the other variable. I saw several of you write 16x squared plus 25y squared. You're not wrong at all. It's still correct. And then you said minus 20xy. But formatting wise, usually the way you're going to see it is written like this. I always think about this as kind of like a dip, all right here. So usually we write that as this form, okay? So multiple choice, this is usually the way you're going to see that written out. Jillian? What's that? Oh, 40, thank you. My bad. I got that 20, I said 40, and thank you, Jillian. All right, so just a small heads up on that one, nothing crazy. All right, let's drop it. Let's do number 4. Go find me number A and B. Go find me the perimeter and the larger and the smaller figure real quick. Okay.
I can do this.
Okay, perimeter, large figure, should have 14x plus 6. And the smaller figure should have a perimeter of 4x. Somebody check me, yes? Okay, James, give me a thumbs up. Okay, larger figure, 4x and 4x is 8x. Walking it around. 3x plus 3 here, or 3x plus 3 there. So 4 and 3 is 7. 4 and 3 is 7. 7x is 14x. 3 and 3 constants. That's where I'm getting to the 14x plus 6 for the larger figure. Okay. Now, smaller figure. Imagine you're just walking around the smaller figure.
Oh.
X plus x plus x plus x is 4x. Okay. Now, if you have not done so yet, go find me the area, only the area, of C and D. The area of the large figure and the area of the smaller figure. Okay, coming back here real quick. Larger figure. Length times width, base times height. 4x times 3x plus 3. You and your buddies should have a simplified expression, always simplified. So, larger figure is 12x squared plus 12x. The smaller figure is a square, x squared. That's it, x squared. X times x is x squared. Which brings me down to the last one. We've done these before. Again, we haven't touched them recently on. Second semester, we'll do more work with it. These are our shaded region problems. We want to find the area of these shaded regions, so a square that's been cut out. So if we take out the square right there, we're taking out the area of the square. Taking out, what operation is that? Subtraction, right?
Mm-hmm.
That brings us back to what we talked about the last couple of days with polynomials. We're taking the first polynomial, the larger one, subtracting out the smaller one. So, algebraically, what we're doing then is the first one minus the second one. That's all we're doing algebraically. And then like terms, right? 12x squared minus 1x squared is 11x squared. Do we do anything with the 12x? Do we have a like term to do anything with the 12x with? No. Okay? So, with these are good, again, combination geometry algebra problems with the touch of the SAT in there. Okay? Let's flip. Let's go. All right. Take number 5. We haven't talked about volume yet, but again, this is one of these, I don't want to just casually throw it out there, but it is our middle school skill. Anybody want to throw me out there what the volume of a cube is? Length times width times height. So, a cube, all right? We know a cube is made up of what? Keep going there. What shape is the cube made up of? Square. So, cube is made up of a bunch of squares, one on top of another. Okay? So, here's my cube. And with that cube, then, all again volume is a whole bunch of areas stacked on one top of one another. Okay? So, to find that volume of this cube, if we know what the area of the base is, the bottom part, and if we start layering one on top of the other, that's where we get volume at. Okay? So volume is just the area of that base times the height, as I heard you say, the cube. So when we look at this first one there, what is the length of the cube? 4x. And it's a square, as I heard somebody say. So 4x by 4x. So just as we did on the other side a second ago, 4x times 4x is what? 16 length times width times height. So 16, so 4x times 4x is 16x squared, right? So going back to a square, 4x times 4x is 16x squared. That is the area of the base, we say. But now we layer on top of another. Right? Kind of looks like a piece of American cheese here, right? If I could take another one on top, another one on top, another one on top, another one on top, what we're doing is getting creating volume. Volume is space that you occupy. And what we're doing is getting adding height to it. What's the height of it? It's the same thing. it's another 4x because a cube is all a bunch of squares, right? So 4x to it, and what is times another 4x? 64. Right. 64 what? X cubed. Correct. Volume is units cubed. Right. Volume is getting into 3 dimensions. You are 3-dimensional. Okay? You are 3-dimensional. That is units cubed. All right? So now we get to the surface area of my cube right here. It's still a cube of 4x. All right? So this cube, we want to calculate the surface area, and there is 6 sides to that cube. So if we were to try to calculate the surface area, try to paint that cube, all right, you got to know what the area is of one of these sides times how many sides it is. Again, there's 6 of those. So we'll talk more about area and volume second semester. But with that, 4x times 4x times however many sides. And as Eva said, it's a cube. There's 6 sides. 4x times 4x times 6 sides. So what do we just say? 16x squared times 6 of those. Okay? So when we do that, what does 16 times 6 give you? 6x squared. And the area, I don't care if it says area or surface area. Area is squared. Okay? So we'll talk more about this throughout this semester. Again, these are good SAT problems that you're going to see in April. If we get to it or don't get to it before that. Okay? All right. Then, as you can see here, a little bit more on that. All right. 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's do. Let's throw it out there. Let's do number 8. Take number 8. Let's do number 8 right there. All right. I'm going to give you a minute there. But again, written ever so slightly different. But again, what's the key word on that one is? Sum. Sum or difference is what they tend to use. All right. Sum, difference. If they're going to say difference, what are you going to use instead? Subtraction. All right. Let's go with one more here. Let's take number 12. Number 12. Off of that. Okay.